What's really interesting to me as well is that both Nicholas and Lorenzo have had truly an incredible run here. Lorenzo Arce went from 0-2 to 10-2 in the competition to make it into Top Cut. Nicholas Morales, this is his first regional ever competing, and with some very unique teams. Yes, you know the Pokemon, yes, you know the ideas, but both these trainers have really put their own personal spin on their game plan approaches.
I think it should be a lot of fun, right? Where Rain versus Dondozo has been a pretty standard thing so far early in this format. You know, we just saw it as the finals of the big fan tournament last weekend. Didn't quite look like this, though. A little bit different twist on the Rain here. We do have the the core 3 Pokemon up on top and kind of the Amoonguss, so the 4 Pokemon in the caster prediction slide. But Incineroar and Mousehold in particular are the surprising choice on this team.
Yeah, Mousehold is one of those Pokemon where we all know that you can run Technician Population Bomb with a wide lens to increase the accuracy of that Population Bomb. You know, it's one of those things that in closed team sheet, you're always like, oh no, what Mousehold is this? But in this case, there's no Annihilate alongside of that Mousehold. There's no real support options in terms of the friend guard. It can redirect, but that Population Bomb alone is going to be a huge threat that Lorenzo is going to have to navigate through.
I think it brings a lot of cool tools that normally aren't on this Rain team, right? Get Taunt somewhere, a second redirection option. You know, the only Follow Me, but Follow Me in addition to Rage Powder, which certainly helps out both of the offensive Pokemon on the top of this team here. And then also, Population Bomb does give that option for an offensive path, right? Even if it's like mostly playing a support role, does a surprising amount of damage, does a little bit more than just break some focus ashes, so an extra thing that you have to worry about.
And again, Nicholas Morales, this is his first regional, so it would make sense that this is really a very notable accomplishment to him. Congratulations. It says top 16 on the slide. I think we can update that to top 8, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, good news. You had to be there for this one, and you are.
Yeah, you are. Let's hope that Dewey still has that whiteboard backstage and is working on an artistic rendition of what's going to come up next. Lorenzo Arce on the opposing side of the field, again, putting his own twist on the Dondozo and Tatsugiri archetype with Dragonite, Clefable, Kingambit, and actually that might be the Annihilate that's supposed to go with the Mousehold on Nicholas's side of the field there.
These trainers perhaps engaged in a trade. I think it's a fun look. It's like sort of 2-2-2 Dondozo, although it's not quite the way you might think. We saw the Choice Scarf Annihilate Dondozo thing, I think like round 3 of the tournament. The Annihilate never actually used any attacking moves. It was entirely supportive Annihilate. Perhaps with a bunch of sport games going on today, I believe the local Baltimore Ravens home opener is happening as we speak. Just offer some coaching, telling the rest of the team some plays to execute.
Yeah, and I think the threat of having, you can go for coaching, you can go for Final Gambit and deal basically your full health points worth of damage to a Pokemon on the opposing side of the field. There's a lot of Pokemon that will be picked up in a one-hit knockout if you go that route. There's so many different ways to approach these matchups. And again, Lorenzo Arce, 0-2 to 10-2, also top 8. Gotta update these slides for these trainers. Congratulations to both of them. And going into this matchup in particular, I was looking at these teams prior to us coming on stream, and I think one interesting option for Nicholas is that Amoonguss with Clear Smog, but we're just gonna jump and maybe even dive right into this battle as Basculesian Pelipper out on the field versus the Dondozo and the Annihilate.
Now, we've both spent some time living in Seattle. We're comfortable in this rain. We'll have to see if the Pokemon are as well. Sort of fun to watch here with this Annihilate on the side of the field. Keep in mind that is the Choice Scarf variant, so best known perhaps for using Final Gambit, but it can do some other fun stuff too. And then, having a single Dondozo on the field always a little scary. You assume in a team like this, unlike the last time we saw a Scarf Annihilate team, the Dondozo and Tatsugiri probably both around here somewhere with Dondozo already seen, so will it come in now? Will it come in later? We'll have to see what it does. Annihilate fleeing immediately. Is it for Tatsugiri?
Well, Dondozo would love to see its friend Tatsugiri enter the field, and that's exactly what we see here. Easily flustered, almost maybe jumping in to that Dondozo to activate the Commander ability, activate all those stat boosts. Works out very well here for Lorenzo, as now this Dondozo is going to be a little bit faster than it was initially when it entered the field, and a little bit stronger and a little bit defensive, and you can't hit a Pokemon that's no longer present on the field, so that Wave Crash tries tries to target down the Tatsugiri, doesn't make it. Order Up will further boost this Dondozo's attack by 1 stage, and Pelipper finishes things off with a Tailwind.
Kind of matching the speed boost, I guess, since Dondozo doubled its own speed by consuming its little friend, but a pretty great turn for Lorenzo. You get to dodge an attack for free, get that Order Up boost, and hey, you know, it's a pretty comfortable 2-hit KO on this Basculegion, who wants nothing of that and gets out of battle.
Archaludon will be the Pokemon taking the field for Nicholas. And Hurricane from that, Pelipper now able to outspeed thanks to the Tailwind. Does a little bit of damage there. Order Up will fire back again. Another attack boost for this Dondozo. But I think the nice thing about sending in the Archaludon in this position is that you have the opportunity to utilize your stamina ability to get some defensive boosts to help you take all that damage. And you can threaten some huge damage back with Electroshot.
Yeah, Dondozo much stronger at the physical defense and the special defense, so while you know, it's a little awkward matchup here with a bunch of water-type Pokemon facing off, at least you get to attack the weaker defensive stat. Also, for later in the battle, could potentially ramp up by getting some special attack boosts from Electroshot, but not so good against Dondozo itself, who is unaware of any stat changes.
It's unaware of any stat changes for sure, but the one big threat about this Archaludon is that if you do allow it to get those boosts and get that engine running, it's going to be able to handle the other Pokemon we've seen from Lorenzo relatively well. That being said, Nicholas dedicating his Terastallization in this battle to the Archaludon, turning it into a grass type, so it will no longer take any super effective damage from the Order Up. Electroshot will still take the turn here to charge up and will still get a special attack boost because of it. However, will not complete due to the Protect on that Dondozo.
Yeah, not completely a fainted turn there, but at least do get the special attack boost, which could be useful later in the battle. Dondozo going to happily chew on those leftovers, get nearly back to full health, and you kind of see what Lorenzo's strategy is here, right? Wants to slow play this a little bit, keep Dondozo as healthy as he can, despite it also being a water-type Pokemon, doesn't especially want the rain to continue, and maybe trying to slowly scale up the attack stat, which is nearing its maximum by beating up all of the partners of this scary terastallized Pokemon.
For sure, and the one downside to Dondozo as well is that Lorenzo, because he has activated Commander, because the Tatsugiri is technically hidden alongside of the Dondozo on the field, that Pokemon cannot switch out. So Nicholas taking this opportunity to pivot in the Amoonguss to try and help support the Archaludon in this matchup. Lorenzo, though, will match the Grass-type Terastallization on his own Dondozo. Again, a great defensive play here. No longer going to be taking super effective damage from Electroshot, but we'll just have to see how much it'll do when it connects.
A really nice prediction, too. Would have expected perhaps to be taking a Hurricane this turn, but no need to worry about it now. And
yeah.
Yikes, that is not going to do much at all.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting to see, honestly. Order Up into that Amoonguss. Again, will bring it down low enough to activate the Citrus Berry. So a little bit of recovery there for Amoonguss. But I think the big turn for Nicholas here was getting the Amoonguss next to the Archaludon. So he could have theoretically redirected attacks, but now it's a grass type. That's no longer a strategy.
Yeah, we went from having a bunch of water type Pokemon on the field to a bunch of grass type Pokemon. You know, I guess you can be whatever type you'd like to be in this format. And Dondozo's looking really good. That's a third Order Up. Has nearly maximized its stats. And even before this last Order Up boost, it did 150 damage to Amoonguss. So more than enough still to pick up the knockout, even if it hadn't further increased its attack without. So I mean, whatever's that slot now, to get to the point, likely to be knocked out in this turn, assuming we see a fourth and final, perhaps, Order Up.
Amoonguss will switch out this turn so that it's able to restore some of its health, and unfortunately Basculegion will be taking its place. Now, if it can hold on for one turn, it could have done something, but like you just said, Scott, going to be knocked out by that Order Up. We'll see one potential final boost on this Dondozo for this game number 1, but it's not Draco Meteor, it's Dragon Pulse from that Archaludon, which does, well, not a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, not great there. I kind of have to sacrifice a Pokemon. Slowly whittling down Dondozo's HP, though, and we see the power of this Pokemon, where at least now with rain expiring, you could switch the Pelipper back in and get it active again for some future Electroshock, but Electroshots, Shocks from the Electroshot. Yeah, you know, something like that.
Something like that.
Whatever we're seeing, the sushi's been on sale. You know, it's getting served up everywhere, and now Pelipper is looking down a very scary Dondozo on the other side of the field.
Yeah, and this is why Dondozo, I think, is something that players just don't want to run into in their tournament run. You can have all these Pokemon and all these approaches to how you play this matchup, but at the end of the day, if you're unable to find that alignment early on in the match, Dondozo just kind of goes and orders up some sides of stat boosts and then is ready to go when, you know, when it's feeling it. No damage on the turn, on the field that turn, though, as the Pelipper went for Protect.
However, okay, so we finally may see what the plan here is. Amoonguss critically does know Clear Smog. It's been slow coming, but we're going to see Wavecrash instead, opting to simply knock the Amoonguss out in a single blow. Unfortunately, there will be no Clear Smogging in Game 1.
And that's exactly why Dondozo is still a favorite. Does take enough recoil damage from that Wave Crash to ensure Hurricane is a KO. But with Nicholas down to his final 2 Pokemon in this matchup, he really has to watch the number of rain turns on the field and make sure that this Archaludon is well positioned to move forward. Lorenzo, on the other hand, can send in his Choice Scarf Annihilate, still has the Tatsugiri with the Focus Sash on the field, and that Tatsugiri as well can benefit from the rain with a muddy water of its own.
Yeah, so the positive thing there with all that pivoting kind of guaranteed some means of we got Final Gambit though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the other thing that could come into play here is that Final Gambit on that Annihilate should have enough health and enough damage to pick up the KO on the Archaludon in a single hit, and that's exactly what we see. This is why you run Choice Scarf Annihilate. Having that delete button essentially in battles is huge.
Looks like Pelipper is about to be deleted as well, and we'll be going straight into Game 2.
And the crowd really going wild there too, as Lorenzo made those final 2 plays in the matchup. It's a very exciting way, I think, to end the game. A lot of times, Final Gambit Annihilate is a Pokemon that you send out initially. You sort of feel out the board position, and then you save it for that critical moment. And I love how Lorenzo played this game, where he did have that in the back. And honestly, with Dondozo and Tatsugiri in front of it, even if that a Pokemon wouldn't have been KO'd by Final Gambit in a single hit, there was enough potential for damage, chip damage, that really it would have had its pick.
Yeah, really impressive game there. I think this is kind of like the tempo of the game was really smart by Lorenzo, where he's doing everything exactly at the right time. You know, terastallizes just as Pelipper is leaving battle, and then eventually is able to get back in and knock it out with the Hurricane. It's just way too late, and then so much damage to the rest of the team. You don't see Amoonguss get one-shot by a water-type attack very often, but hey, you know, we've seen in the past Pokemon maximize their attack by belly drumming. In this case, Dondozo maximizing its attack by filling its belly and able to have a very fulfilling victory in that first game.
Yeah, no room for sandwiches after this match, maybe for that Dondozo, but I think that's okay. I'm very curious how Nicholas is going to adjust in this game number 2, because going back to what happened in game 1, it felt like a lot of that time was spent just trying to find the alignment, trying to find that Amoonguss in front of the Dondozo, and by the time it got there just wasn't any time. So I almost feel like you can maybe not lead the Amoonguss, because again, you still have to worry about Final Gambit being a possibility on the Annihilate, but you gotta send it in sooner so that you have that immediate threat, assuming a Lorenzo will be going for Dondozo a second time.
Yeah, I think the Pokemon who really kind of let him down in that game was the Basculegion, who didn't really accomplish anything. Kind of was just out there to help Dondozo boost its attack a little bit. We see the same lead from Lorenzo, which I don't think is too surprising after how successful that game was. But to see a critical combination of Pokemon on the other side of the field, it really was the point at which Pelipper and Amoonguss got in the field next to one another, where things started turning around for Nicholas that first game. So didn't get both of them out of there immediately. However, you know, it's a little too early for right now, right? Tatsugiri is not out there yet, so perhaps going to try to bait a Final Gambit into another Pokemon or something of that nature.
Something of that nature. Nicholas does have the opportunity here to at least put a little bit of pressure on this Dondozo initially by leading that Pokemon. I think if Lorenzo wants to take a similar strategy to what we saw in game number 1, has to recognize that Clear Smog is what Nicholas is going to be fishing for. Maybe pun a little bit intended there, but won't be able to find any damage on that Pokemon this turn, as Amoonguss will be switching out for the Basculegion. That is a potential Pokemon here who could take a fighting type attack very well thanks to its ghost typing.
See, early terrestrialization here. Dondozo keeping itself safe, avoiding any potential spores, and going to fight a little bit without its friend Tatsugiri this time.
I think that's okay, though, as nothing really threatens the Dondozo on the field.
A really little bit without its friend Tatsugiri.
Yeah, a really little bit indeed. I guess you do have to worry about a potential hurricane from the Pelipper now, but...
Yeah, no one way to reduce the damage of it.
Yeah,
Why don't we just get right back where we started? And hey, you know, Annihilate actually gets a decent little bit done there. Gets Basque Legion baited back out, which we saw how well that worked the last time, and breaks the Focus Sash kind of for free.
Kind of for free, and potentially could be a 1-2 combo into this Pelipper. We'll have to wait a moment here while Dondozo really taking its time with all the boosts. Here comes the wave crash into the Pelipper, and that is enough to take it out in the first turn of this game.
Really fun combination there. Annihilate just doing a little bit of damage, just enough to break that Focus Sash, and then now completely eliminates the threat of that Pelipper. One of the best ways of dealing damage to the Dondozo as well. I mean, now there's the opportunity for the Clear Smog, but you know, the rest of his team does not match up super well with that Pelipper, so eventually can stall at the rain now. Later in the match, won't have to worry about that, and no longer will Dondozo have to deal with those powerful hurricanes.
They won't have to worry about hurricanes, but there is a move on Nicholas's side of the field that I think would be a little bit concerning here. Last Respects is the signature move of Basque Legion, and depending on how many Pokemon are knocked out, it will get a bit of a base power increase. So something to keep in mind, especially once you lose the defensive boosts from that commander ability. We won't see Clear Smog connect with the Dondozo this turn to accomplish that, though, because it went for Protect.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly coming, though. The Dondozo is not going to be able to keep its stat boost for the entire battle this time, but this does give it an opportunity now to fire a powerful attack into that Basque Legion slot. We'll be able to ignore any potential rage powers, which surely isn't coming with the need to Clear Smog. So, you know, we have to decide now if you're Nicholas, do you want to take some damage on Basque Legion, who could be very important later, or on Arce, who could be even more important later. You know, kind of the end game sweeping condition.
And unfortunately for Nicholas as well, both those Pokemon really benefit from the rain, so you have to make every single turn count. Dondozo revealing another attacking move here. It did bring Earthquake, so we'll do a bit of nice spread damage. Here comes that Clear Smog, and it's also super effective now thanks to the grass typing terrestrialization.
So, yeah, actually decent damage in the Clear Smog, too.
Yeah.
So, finally, the terror of the stat boost, at least for Game 2, are over for this Dondozo, but it's had a pretty big impact, right? Again, you know, the core Pokemon of this team, the one who sets up all of the offense with the other Pokemon, has been defeated, and, you know, we're almost out of rain turns now. Dondozo going to be able to stall out a little while longer if it wants to, and some chip damage in both these Pokemon. I think one thing to keep in mind, well, let's watch the Life Respects first.
Let's give your last respects to this Basque Legion, as while it is able to fire off an attack, it actually holds on through that wave crash. Dondozo taking damage from the recoil, and Amoonguss opting to Pollen Puff the Basque Legion, so it's right back up at over half of its health.
Yeah, wisely done there. I mean, I think it's important, right? Again, you know, with already down a Pokemon, this Dondozo kind of mostly been dealt with. The important thing is, well, what board state can I set up after this Dondozo has been knocked out? Now there's sort of an interesting situation where you have the option of knocking out Dondozo, maybe getting a Spore on that Tatsugiri, and sort of flipping the situation around where now it would be Lorenzo, who kind of only is dealing with half as many tools.
The other thing you have to keep in mind as well is that with that Annihilate in the back of Lorenzo's party, you have to make sure that whatever is remaining on the field won't necessarily be taken down by Final Gambit like we saw earlier. Archaludon does come in, though, for this Basque Legion. Wave Crash into it, not very effective. Will also activate the stamina defense boost. So something, again, to keep in mind. We still don't know the last Pokemon on the field for Lorenzo. If it is a physical attacker, getting all of these stamina boosts now, assuming the Amoonguss is still around to redirect a potential Final Gambit, again, that's a very important win condition for Nicholas to keep in mind.
And Nicholas did a nice job, too, of keeping his Pokemon healthy, where it looked like he was going to have to give up quite a bit, but these Pollen Puffs are really smart. You know, we got Basque Legion back a little over half of its health. Archaludon now, not only is it full health, but has gained a single stamina boost, which could be helpful later. At the very least, just to create the pressure where now it's going to get to a point where Final Gambit is the only really good solution to it, right? Even a series of fighting type attacks are going to be tough to take it out with. And again, pending what that last Pokemon is. If it's a physical attacker, we're starting to look like a pretty realistic win condition.
Yeah, and looking at Lorenzo's team sheet as well, you have to assume it's going to be Dragonite or King Gambit, as I don't think Clefable is necessarily going to help the team out too much in this situation. But only Lorenzo knows what that final Pokemon is for now. We might get to sneak a peek of it, though, with a Dragon Pulse able to finally pick up the KO on the Dondozo. This will force Tatsugiri back out onto the field, and Amoonguss will have the opportunity to connect an attack against it, and it's able to put it to sleep.
Yeah, expertly done there, and now, switches around the advantage a little bit. And this is a tricky situation to play in if you're a Lundra side of a team. The Pokemon that we've seen already has that Choice Scarf, so pretty limited in what it can do while Tatsugiri is sleeping, and then there it is. So now what do, right? You just go for the final gambit. If you do so, you're likely trading with Amoonguss, but you have to be at least a little bit cautious. The possibility that perhaps a switch or something causes you to attack or to collide with Basculegion instead, who's not going to be quite as effective as it normally is with no more rain in this battle. And then also, how do you close the game? As you've noted, almost certainly a physical attacker in the back. So, I don't think our Chaladon's going to be all too disappointed about what it might have to fight.
Well, it's not going to be that Tatsugiri, as Lorenzo will switch it out to keep the Focus Sash intact. And it is King Gambit as that critical fourth Pokemon for Lorenzo. Rage Powder will keep this Archaludon safe. Also will take the opportunity, though, to not matter this turn as the Choice Scarf Annihilate locked into coaching, which will significantly reduce the amount of damage that this body press does from Archaludon.
What an aggressive call, though. I kind of love what both players did. Coaching can't be redirected, kind of one of those moves like Dragon Cheer that only targets your side of the field, but predicts it and then calls the switch in on the King Gambit, kind of realizing, well, that's probably the final Pokemon. Your outs are pretty limited at this point, and it just knowing the matchup really well. What a great call.
That was a great call indeed by Nicholas, and really puts him in the driver's seat moving forwards. The Annihilate certainly could go for another coaching into that King Gambit, but it probably wouldn't be able to benefit from that boost. If it tries to go on the offense with the Sucker Punch, that attack boost would happen after, as that's a priority move, and King Gambit's just a really speedy, normal priority Pokemon at this point in time. Instead, Lorenzo, though, making a call to switch it out for later, preserve the threat of a final Gambit, and send back in the Tatsugiri. Sucker Punch from that King Gambit, not going to do a lot of damage to the Archaludon, and further boosting its defenses and power of the body press will pick up the KO on King Gambit.
Becoming very unclear what out there could possibly be. Picking up a nice knockout there. Spore covering for potential options, and now Annihilate was going to be able to select one final move, but now what, right? There's not really any clearer way that it can get through the Amoonguss. Tatsugiri hasn't been out in the field, right? So it can't wake up yet, and even if it does, it's going to have a hard time breaking through the remaining Pokemon. Just a really well-played game by Nicholas in Game 2.
Yeah, unfortunately for this Annihilate, it's almost like close combat is the best option for it, because if you do opt for a final Gambit, you're just going to be knocking yourself out in the process and giving the Tatsugiri even more of an uphill battle moving forwards. That is what connects with the Amoonguss. It does just enough damage to activate that Citrus Berry and heal its health up further. So Amoonguss just happy to keep redirecting these attacks. Tatsugiri still asleep this turn, like you mentioned. That is the first required turn of sleep, and a Dragon Pulse from this Archaludon, bringing it down to the Focus Sash.
Yeah, at least it stays in the field, but things are still looking bad here. And Annihilate's Choice Scarf also really going to work against it, where you normally be like, okay, well, what I need is Tatsugiri to wake up and knock out the Amoonguss, but they're moving in the opposite order because of the Choice Scarf, right? There'll be yet another useless close combat into this Amoonguss that the main impact of will be to further lower Annihilate's stats, making it easier for Nicholas to eventually knock it out.
I love this almost final turn terrestrialization from Nicholas on the Archaludon, just in recognizing that as long as the Annihilate's locked into close combat, it can't do any KO damage. Even if it were to critical hit the Archaludon without the weakness to a fighting type attack, it is very happy to just stay on the field and keep tanking hits. And then by going for a double attack here, Archaludon moves first, will pick up the KO on the Tatsugiri, and now Amoonguss will start the process of chipping down this Annihilate. Nicholas taking a very great adjustment after a tough game number one, and showcasing just that he's in it and still vying again for the semifinals for potentially the title of champion here in Baltimore.
And things got a little weird at the end there, but Nicholas had that pretty locked in, and only moving on to a game two there. So we've kind of seen between the first two games a decisive victory from either side, right? One game, Dondozo really got carried away, kind of won the game on its own. The other game, Nicholas played the beginning of the game a little bit better, quickly got in a position where he could remove those stat boosts, and then easily took over the game himself.
For sure, and it does make you wonder just how these trainers are going to adjust moving forwards. I think Nicholas made the correct call of trying to play that Amoonguss a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressively, but more quickly in the battle, where he let it, yes, he did switch it out for a turn or two, but it came right back out onto the field, and as soon as that clear smog connected, really just opened up the doors for him. So now in this game number 3, I would imagine that he would want to rely on that a bit more, but then you look at Lorenzo's side of the field, and there's certainly a ton of Amoonguss answers there that he could adapt. He doesn't have to bring the Dondozo and the Tatsugiri necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, he brings them, right? I mean, you get also the option of kind of just playing the beginning of the game a little bit more slowly. It was a pretty cool play to pick up the immediate knockout in the Pelipper, but it wound up just kind of letting Nicholas set up exactly what he wanted more quickly. And I think the speed at which he removes those stat increases is really the important part of this matchup. You know, Dondozo is very unlikely to get anything like game 1 again. So that's the dream game, right? You know, literally maxing out your attack stat and just one-shotting an Amoonguss. But it doesn't need to be that effective in order for Lorenzo to win the set. It does need to be able to attack multiple times with stat boost, probably. I think, you know, maybe you look at a 2-Pokemon combination and like actually play it a little bit more 2-2-2 this time. Or yeah, maybe you do just switch it up all the way. Although I kind of feel like just kind of looking at these Pokemon, there's a firepower gap, right? I mean, it's really designed around the combination of Dondozo and Tatsugiri. So using the other 4 Pokemon can be tricky, but hey, you know, maybe there's a path there too.
Yeah, I think the other adjustment that I want to see from Lorenzo, if not, you know, maybe downplaying the importance of the Dondozo and the Tatsugiri in his strategy. You know, the Dragonite is right there. I mean, it's one of his partner Pokemon plush on the desk rooting him on, and it's also an Assault Vest Pokemon that doesn't have to worry as much about body press damage from the Archaludon and can deal back some big damage with a Terraflying Terrablast. Yes, you might want to try and save that grass-type terrestrialization for Dondozo, but I do think it's an option to consider, especially if you're trying to catch your opponent a little bit off guard in game number 3.
Yeah, I think the problem is just like, yeah, I mean, how do you do enough damage? We're going to see the same leads, so I have to see, will they play it differently? Well, not. It's exactly what we saw to start out game 2.
Yeah, so, but you were saying, though, how do you do enough damage to...
Well, yeah, you want to just go for the blind final gambit and see what happens?
I mean, you could. It's a risk for sure, but if you're worried about how game number 1 went and you're looking back and recognizing that, okay, maybe I don't knock out the Pelipper turn 1, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the scary thing is, well, if you don't do that, what's your pivot here, right? You could, the same play as game 1's a little bit scary. Last time there was a switch immediately, so the final game it wouldn't have worked. But hey, you know, maybe you're just reading that Nicholas is going to think a little further ahead this time and assume the same move. But Amoonguss will once again be getting out of the battle, knowing that it's too important to go down here.
And Basculegion will be taking its place, and because of that, Pelipper learning a lesson from game number 2. They're going straight for a Protect in this first turn. U-turn into the Basculegion will do a little bit of chip damage, and I think we know what Pokemon's coming in next.
I think there's a good chance.
I think there's a good chance. It does make you wonder if Lorenzo did make an adjustment for that final Pokemon to consider earlier or later on in the match, but for now, as it is still early doors, we get to see Dondozo do what it does best once again.
Yeah, I think a critical difference here, though, is the Pelipper has survived this time, which is mostly good for Nicholas, although because it has survived, Amoonguss not on the field, right?
Yeah.
So at least there's a chance now for Lorenzo to try to focus down any potential Amoonguss switch-ins and maybe get a few order-ups down.
Yeah,
and
well,
there's the first.
I was going to say, there's the first order. I have an order up for Dondozo, an attack boost, dealing some nice damage to Basculegion and putting it within KO range.
Yeah, and now this is looking more like game 1, right? Where it got that first order up while Amoonguss off the field, hit Amoonguss on the switch-in, and then it wasn't able to stay in clear smog because it would have been knocked out with the order up. Gonna have to be a little more tricky this time, perhaps. Try to get a free switch to not take the extra order up.
Well, a Wave Crash will do a little bit of damage into the Dondozo, takes some damage in recoil as well. Order up, targeting down the Pelipper to break that Focus Sash. We are at 2 order up boosts, and while Pelipper is able to set up the Tailwind to help Pokemon maybe, you know, be a little bit faster moving forwards in this match, this Dondozo, there's nothing stopping it from keeping those orders coming.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what happened in game 1, but I feel like it was like really close to exactly this, right?
Yeah.
Now it'll be the 5th level of attack. At least there's no switching this time, but you gotta feel like one of these 2 Pokemon is not long for this battle.
I was gonna say, like, regardless of the actual execution of turns in game number 1, we're in a very similar situation here, where this Dondozo is just getting boost after boost after boost. boost. And while it isn't Nicholas switching in the Amoonguss this time around, with Basculegion being KO'd by another order of the Tatsugiri special, if you will, you have to wonder, is Amoonguss going to come out on the field now? Is there enough attack on this Dondozo to pick up that KO? Or is Nicholas going to have to try and fish for a little bit more, I don't know, chip damage maybe on the Dondozo? Maybe you can try and force the terrestrialization here.
Yeah, this is a pretty
It's
big
tough.
deviation, right? Where perhaps just opting to go for damage onto his Dondozo with the two most powerful special attackers on his team. I guess the flip side of it too is there also hasn't been a terrestrialization force from the Dondozo either. So Lorenzo still has some options for later in the game that he wouldn't have in game 1 or game 2.
Yeah, and I really like how he tried to pin the Dondozo here, that if Lorenzo did go for a terrestrialization, then you get super effective damage from Hurricane. If it doesn't, you get super effective damage from the Electro Shot. The Protect here at least lets him know that this is probably what Nicholas is going to do in the next turn. So you really have to know your damage calcs here, which will allow you to fire back another attack. Would it be a order up into the Pelipper for the KO, or do you have to start going after that Archaludon?
Yeah, I mean, that's a scary thing too, where if you don't take out the Pelipper, there's still the option for speed control. I think that was another critical element of last game, even though it didn't wind up being enough, or at least there was no concern for Tailwind later in the game. Annihilate was convincingly the fastest Pokemon for what was left. So a little different board state this time. Finally, we have some major deviation from the first and the second game. We'll have to see what both trainers are thinking, because, I think if Nicholas Desire is pretty close to picking up that knockout on the Dondozo and moving on to the next phase of this game.
Yeah, it's a nice deviation as well, because I think it showcases just why Pelipper is such a threat in terms of these weather-setting Pokemon. It can still do damage. Hurricane not going to be enough to pick up the KO on the Dondozo, but Archaludon following up with another Electro Shot. It will be able to connect. The Dondozo has taken, I think, enough damage to pick up that KO. This could be huge, and it is enough.
Yeah, big knockout there. You see the effects of the Tailwind, where even though Dondozo has that boosted speed from Commander, not enough to outspeed these Pokemon with Tailwind, and with Rain expiring, at least there's still the option of, cycling the Pelipper back in and out, perhaps, although maybe it's not necessary, right? The special attack boosts now matter on the Archaludon because the unaware Pokemon has been defeated, and we find ourselves in an interesting spot, because one other critical moment is, Annihilate still available in the back, and, this Archaludon cannot protect. So
you
have the option of going for a final Gambit in that slot, and then you're guaranteed either to knock this Pokemon out or the Amoonguss that's hiding behind it. And then it's all up to that final Pokemon, where Lorenzo does know his final Pokemon, where of course Nicholas does not.
And I think seeing how he approaches this endgame, especially knowing that he will send in the Annihilate again, will show us just what that last Pokemon is. If he's anticipating the Amoonguss to switch in for the Archaludon, maybe you just go for that final Gambit and you hope that it's not the King Gambit in the back of your party to close things out for this game. It's a tough call to make for both these trainers, and especially given that this is really their first time playing under this amount of pressure. Every single turn counts.
Yeah, and you gotta worry too, where Tatsugiri's job here is going to be to deal with this Pelipper, but neither of its moves have perfect accuracy. So will Tatsugiri crush under the pressure?
Well, final Gambit will miss the KO on Amoonguss by 3 health points. So here comes the Tatsugiri and the potential muddy water here. Of course, Amoonguss still has that Citrus Berry, so probably will be able to withstand the attack from this Pokemon. It does connect with both its targets, which is not something that you can always say, but the Pelipper able to hold on, gets the accuracy drop, but not going to come into play this turn, as it will set up Tailwind.
Now, the game is far from over. You see the importance of Amoonguss surviving. If Amoonguss had been knocked out, that Muddy Water would have done more damage because it no longer would have a spread attack, would have knocked out that Pelipper before it get the Tailwind off. Instead, once again, a Pokemon with the speed control move, just barely surviving, able to set up the board in a more favorable state, and we'll have to find out now if that's enough for Nicholas.
Archaludon will come back out onto the field. I think this is a great play from Nicholas, hoping to start getting those stamina boosts and hoping to get body press into a position where it can deal the final damage to the opposing King Gambit. King Gambit, though, will double down. It's a Terra Dark King Gambit with the Black Glasses item. We've seen just how much damage this Pokemon does in the Regulation H format in particular. Weather Ball first will connect with the opposing Tatsugiri to break that Focus Sash. A great call there, as that's the higher accuracy of Pelipper's 2 moves. We get a stamina boost on our Charlodon from the Muddy Water. Doesn't look like we're going to see an accuracy drop come through, so that's one defense boost. Here comes another. Kowtow Cleave will be boosted by the Terra type, but still at +1 defense, just not going to do a lot of damage.
Well, that's pretty scary too, because yeah, not only is it going to reduce the damage of future attacks from this poor King Gambit, but also going to start increasing the damage of this body press from Archelodon. So yeah, I mean, it looking like King Gambit's going to have to be the offensive threat in this game, but there still is the Tatsugiri there, right? If there's some way you can deal with the Amoonguss, maybe you can get a Draco Meteor onto this Archelodon and end the game that way instead. Still a very tight match.
Still a very tight match. Again, every single turn counts for both of these Pokemon trainers. It's down to the final 2 Pokemon. It's down to the final game of this Masters Top 8 here in Baltimore, and Dragon Pulse from Archelodon will be starting the turn off and will be able to pick up the KO on the Tatsugiri. It is just the King Gambit left for Lorenzo. It is going to attack with another Kowtow Cleave, this time targeting down that Amoonguss, trying to save itself from a Spore, and it is able to pick up the KO, but Archelodon still at full health, or almost full health, still a huge threat to this Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nicholas almost has this locked in now. There was the option for Tatsugiri to protect there. I think choosing not to do that could have been this game's decisive decision.
It won't take one body press to pick up that KO there, so King Gambit will have the opportunity to go for another Kowtow Cleave, and this is where things get really interesting, as there is always the potential for a Sucker Punch critical hit to end up the game.
Yeah, that could be all of it this comes down to now. What's going to happen this final turn?
All right, Sucker Punch. It's boosted by the Dark-type Terastallization. It is not enough to pick up the knockout. Archelodon holding on with 3 HP and a dream. Nicholas Morales moving on to top 4 in his first regional here in Baltimore.
Well, matches don't get any closer than that, coming down to just 3 hit points. And before that, I think about the same amount of hit points in the Pelipper, right? Twice in that battle, Nicholas's Pokemon were trained just right, able to find his way out of that one after a very tough first game of that set, grinding it out. Really great poise by him, and congratulations to him as he moves on to the top 4.
Yeah, poise I think is the perfect word for it, because you could have even had that Archelodon Terastallize away from a Dragon type weakness, like you were sort of mentioning. You know, maybe the Tatsugiri goes on the offense there, but had he done that, that Sucker Punch probably would have picked up the KO in the end game. So just very well played, and I think again some great showcasing of new talent here at the Baltimore Regional Championships. You know, we have some of the most seasoned players in the metagame, but we also have these newer players who are just showcasing why they are up here on stage. Just incredible plays all around.
Yeah, the first game, you know, we can see Dondozo dominating, but then, you know, the path of the first game starts slipping away here at Game 3, where it looked like it was going to be just as decisive. But the big difference was, yeah, that Archelodon getting in the game a little bit faster, helping Pelipper pin Dondozo to pick up that knockout with the combination of moves that were super effective, regardless of whether or not it was Terastallized. Final Gambit just barely failing to pick up this knockout. Certainly, you know, that's a known thing, right? You can train for that. So
yeah.
That one, not luck in any way, probably. And that Pelipper, with a single hit point, able to survive this muddy water. And wow, you know, it's just that close.
It was just that close indeed. But that is why Pokemon is such a fun game to watch and play. At the end of the day, it really can be anybody's game, and that's what's so exciting. And I'm so glad we got to go back and just watch through this end game again, because it was really just that close.
Yeah, and it wasn't just these Pokemon surviving with just a few hit points too. I mean, the decisions mattered as well.
Yes.
Certainly, again, you know, I think that Tatsugiri, you know, a protect on that turn instead certainly would have caused a difference of more than 3 hit points. But congratulations to Nicholas, moving on and showing the power of this Rain archetype in this format.
Yeah, choosing the Skiploom as his mascot plush there. I'm guessing we don't have a Pelipper around for some of these trainers to adopt for their photos. We might have to fix that. And, you know, the other thing I want to call out about Nicholas's team is that, you know, I think we saw the Rain Core incredibly well throughout those 3 games, exactly matching your predictions, Scott, coming into this tournament. But we didn't see the Mousehold and we didn't see the Incineroar.
Maybe that's good for him as well as he moves on to the tournament, right? Where you know, Rain does have a pretty favorable Dondozo matchup, although for a while that set didn't feel like it was a lot of fun to watch the back and forth of it. it. But, you know, the two most surprising parts of his team didn't really get revealed, right? You get to see, I mean, certainly some of the moves and the items and the Terra type, but like the way he chooses to play them and kind of the strategy with it wasn't revealed. So perhaps in his next round, we will see how he uses that, and there'll be kind of some extra surprise for his opponents.
Yeah, and his next round will be facing off against Dawei C in the semifinals, but we're going to be taking a step away from that side of the bracket as our next match on stream will be Paul Chua versus Toller Webb. And I don't know about you, Scott, but I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, two fantastic players. You know, Toller Webb, a former senior division world champion, as well as a Masters division regional champion. And then, hey, you know, Paul Chua back in the action after taking some time off. You know, Wolf looked like he might be extending his regional championship title. Like, I guess, cumulative title lead.
Yeah.
But Wolf ended up losing the top 16. Now Paul Chua has the opportunity. He's just 2 set wins away from adding another one to his list and starting to catch up to Wolf on that all-time leaderboard.
Yeah, and being able to make it this far in the competition as well. I mean, we saw just how insane that game was, Paul Chua versus Z earlier on in the stream. Just goes to show, I think he's one of the most poised Pokemon trainers out there, to quote something you said earlier. I feel like nothing rattles him, honestly. So I'm so excited to see how he's going to approach this matchup with Toller. You know, both of their teams have been on stream already. These players certainly know how they think, how they approach the game, and we're just going to get to observe, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, they're both so good, right? They're so hard to knock out of a tournament once you get to this phase. In Paul's case, you know, I feel like right up into the point where that Moonblast lowered the special attack, I kind of thought he was done, and then not was able to eventually win that game, but also the game 3 as well. Really well played by him, and yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to see who comes out on top of this one.
All right, well, I'm also excited to say we have an interview with Nicholas Morales here. Top 4, first regional. I can't wait to hear from him himself. Do we please take it away?
Thank you so much, Gabby and Scott. I am currently in the lounge right now with the top 8 winner, our semifinalist, Nicholas Morales. Nicholas, how are you feeling right now?
Feels surreal, honestly.
Can you tell us a bit more? This is your first regional championship. Tell me about what happened in day 1, day 2, and then how's the experience been coming all the way over here to the top 4?
So day one was pretty interesting. Day 1, when I went into day 1, I didn't really expect a day 2. I really wanted to do well, obviously, but I definitely didn't expect a day 2, given this is my first ever regional. And once I started, I played my first game, won that, right? Felt good. Lost my second game, right? Now you know, now I'm down in the dumps, win my next 2, and then I lose like my 5th game, and now I'm like, I gotta like lock in and win the rest of them, and I ended up doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you absolutely locked in. I mean, you're now in the top 4 in your first ever regional championship. Can you just go ahead and give us a little quick rundown on your team? Are there any cool tricks that you want to talk about? You can keep them hidden if you want to, but if there's anything that you want to talk about that's special about your team, let us know. Let the people know.
I have a rain team. I don't know if there's any cool tricks at rain. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's pretty basic.
Well, I mean, it seemed like you're piloting it well. How do you feel about going into Dondozo matchups? Are you pretty well prepared for that?
No.
No?
That was like my 5th Dondozo matchup, and every time I played a Dondozo, it feels like if I don't get the lead right, I'm on the back foot immediately. The most recent one was definitely a lot tougher because he had the final Gambit Annihilate. I wasn't sure. I knew I know I lived with Amoonguss, but I wasn't sure if I lived the follow-up from Dozo. That's why I had kept switching in that game. Because I knew I was slow. Even after Tailwind, I was slower than the Dozo. I came to find this out in other games, that after Tailwind, I was still slower than the Dozo. So that's why I kept switching over and doing all that kind of stuff.
In terms of this Rain archetype, do you feel like this is one of your favorite teams in this format right now? Do you think that the Rain archetype is the best team in the format?
I think Balance is actually one of the better teams in the format. Before I went into this, I was playing around with the Balance Volcarona team with Clefable, but I ended up really liking Rain a lot more, so I just stuck with the Rain.
Gotcha. This is your first ever regional championship. Do you have any advice to any players out there that might be watching? You know, hey, what to do to prepare for your first regional championship to possibly even be able to have the amount of success that you're having right now?
Honestly, just go with friends. Your friends make the experience so much better, you know? Whether win or lose, you know, you have people with you while you're there, and you go, after every game, you guys meet up, talk about the games. Maybe that can like help you into your lines and stuff. So just have friends go with.
Do you have any shout outs that you want to give out to anybody watching the broadcast right now?
Yeah, I want to shout out all the draft players.
Anybody specific or just to the
Shout
draft?
out, yeah. Shout out WBG and all the VGC draft guys.
Gotcha. I'm going to go ahead and let you go prepare for your top 4 matchup. Nicholas, congratulations. It's always been such a pleasure to get to talk to players here in the lounge. But yeah, I'm going to go let you prepare. Thank you so much for joining me here in the lounge. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, more action here in Baltimore.